Hello, 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 and welcome. My name is Karita Robert Green, and this is the Unwrap Your GIFT podcast, the show where we dance in conversation about all things to do with life, how to find your gifts, and step into your true, authentic power. You will learn how to celebrate who you really are, enjoy the show, sit back, relax, and enjoy. I am so excited today to be joined by the amazing Alex Østergaard.
Woo.
So I'm just going to share a bit of information about who Alex is, and he will share about his journey. So Alex started his career at Google and then went on to work at other big tech companies like Uber and eBay. During this time, he experienced a number of imposter syndrome and never felt good enough despite promotions and doing well in his job. This led to a lot of self-induced stress, anxiety, and eventually burnout. Since then, he's been on a mission to help people from the corporate world to optimize their mindset and avoid making the same mistakes that he did. He now works with a variety of clients from big corporations to help them overcome imposter syndrome, improve self-confidence, and find a stronger sense of purpose. Wow, wow, wow. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You're
I'm
welcome.
super excited.
That was an amazing intro. You've been on such a journey in your life so far. There's been highs, there's been lows. So I really want to hear some more information. Just tell me and share with the audience a bit about your journey so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So for starters, I'm half English, half Danish, but I was born and raised in France. And so it depends how far you want me to go, but I'll go for the whole story. But I won't make it too long. But essentially, I grew up, and as a child and as a young child, I was always very good at things. I was I was a fast runner. I was good at sports. I was good in school, and I was often told that I was a natural. You're natural at this. You're so good at this. And while my parents probably had the best interest by doing that, what ended up happening is that I started only doing the things that I was good at, and I built this belief that if you're not great at something to start with, then you're not good at it. So I would kind of avoid, whenever things got hard, I would abandon them and just keep on doing the things that I was good at. Mm-hmm. And so one of the first times that I hit a wall with this was at school. So I used to be, like I said, top of the class, and then around the age of 13, 14, when suddenly you have to start doing homework and you actually have to start doing work outside of school to maintain the good grades, then my grades started to plummet. And then I just thought, oh, well, I'm just not good at school. And you know, the French school system is also extremely elitist, and there's this grading system. And so, you know, I started to develop these beliefs around my intellectual capabilities, and that I wasn't as clever, I wasn't as intelligent as everyone else. And then, so, you know, I still managed to get through life, and I would always do the bare minimum and get just scrape through. And eventually I got in to university at really like a good business school, Copenhagen Business School. But one of the reasons I got in, or at least that's how I justified at the time, was because it was 2008, and this was just before the financial crisis. So hardly anyone was studying. It was the lowest grade point average you needed to get in. And so in my head, I was like, oh, I just got this amazing lucky break and just, again, scraped through, got into this business school. And all the years after us, all the grade point average was so much higher, and I would have never gotten in if I hadn't applied that exact year. So again, I, you know, maybe this is the first time I start feeling a bit like an imposter. And then I got my first internship at this huge pharmaceutical called Novo Nordisk. But the lucky break I got there was that I applied. It was in the summer, and it was they promoted that internship really badly. So very, very few people applied, and I ended up, you know, one of the 20, 30 people that applied, which was nothing. And so then I got that job, but again, it was like, oh, lucky break, because, you know, there just weren't that many applicants. So again, in that job, I felt like an imposter. But then I started to, you know, feel this, well, I would attach my sense of self-worth as well to being in the business school, to working at this company. And eventually, towards the end of my studies, I applied for a job at Google. And so again, in my head, the only reason I got to interview was because I had this lucky break in Copenhagen Business School, and I had this lucky break at this big pharmaceutical. So I had a fairly good CV. And then the interviews go well because I'm very good at interviewing, but deep down I have no idea what I'm doing. And then they said, "Oh, can you send us your grades from high school and university?" And I send them my grades, and then they're like, "Oh, actually, after reviewing your grades, we'd like to do some additional interviews just to make sure." So then I was like, "Oh, I'm about to be found out." And so they gave me 2 additional interviews, and one of them, they decided to do it in French because they wanted to test my French because I had French on my CV. So I did this interview, and my interviewer turned out, well, my French was way better than hers. So during the interview, I was kind of helping her ask me questions, and at the end, I even said, "Oh, that you did really well. Like, your French is really good." So again, another lucky break, and I got the job, and eventually, yeah, throughout the whole time I felt like an imposter, and I had a bad first manager, which started really making me feel like not confident in the workplace. I was afraid of being found out. I experienced anxiety and stress for the first time, and but then the easiest thing to do was switch jobs. Then I started working at Uber, and then that's when I again felt like an imposter a lot of the time, and I discovered the political game that you can play in companies. I'm sure you're familiar with that, where it's all about sending the right emails and like making it appear like you're doing loads of work, but without doing much. And if on top of that you're feeling like an imposter, I felt that I had this whole house of cards around me that was protecting me, and eventually, at one point, that house of cards fell down, and I had a burnout, and so that was a really low point in my life. But eventually, like, it turned out to be one of the best things that's ever happened to me, because it was kind of this wake up call that I need to focus on myself. I need to work on my self confidence. I need to work on taking better care of my body, of myself, and that opened up or put me down this personal development journey, which a couple of years later I discovered the world of coaching, and so now over the last 2.5 years I've been helping people who are in a similar position to me to avoid making all the same mistakes like you said in the introduction that I made, so that they can hopefully not feel like imposters, or at least welcome the feeling of imposters and see that it's actually a good thing for them, so that they can navigate their life and not have the same level of stress and anxiety that I had.
Wow.
So yeah, sorry, that was a bit long, but
no, that's awesome. We're dancing in a conversation. So this is just a freestyle conversation. We're going to dance. There's going to be highs and lows, and we're just going to share. That's it. That was an amazing story. And what I really got from that is the consistency of feeling like an imposter all the way from school. Then you go to work, and it's like, it can never be that you're actually amazing.
Yeah.
There's always a reason other than I'm just really good at this. And that was a consistent theme throughout your life. And I think just by you sharing that, I'm sure so many people listening to this can relate to feeling like an imposter at some point in their life. Even myself, when I first started coaching, I could totally relate to feeling like an imposter syndrome. It's a massive thing. So I'm so glad that you actually was able to share it, because not everyone admits that they have it. They just pretend, they pretend that they're happy in their job, or when they get a new job, they're happy that they got it. But really deep down, they're waiting to be found out. And like you just talked about the house of cards, it's like you're just waiting, looking behind your shoulder, like, when are people going to realize that really I'm not good at this and I don't know what I'm doing?
So true.
Oh, that's it. Amazing. So what would you say, how would you, for those people who may not have ever heard of imposter syndrome, I know we just talked about it before, just share a bit about, because you teach it now. So just tell us a bit about what imposter syndrome is and how it occurs for people.
Yeah, so I guess imposter syndrome is that, like you said, that feeling that you're going to be found out, so that you're kind of in a position, maybe at work, and you deep down you feel like maybe you got a lucky break, maybe you don't really deserve to be there. And so you have these feelings that, you know, I shouldn't be where I am right now, and at some point someone's going to find me out. It's kind of feeling a bit like a fraud in your position.
And you mentioned that was a really good explanation about it, feeling like a fraud in your position. And usually when people have imposter syndrome, they're probably doing something quite what people see as successful on the outside, right? Something that they should feel lucky that they have. And that feeling like a fraud, you mentioned that eventually that led to burnout for you. So what was that like, that burnout? Because you was pretending for a while and then eventually burnout happens. So that's the impact of just pretending for so long, or feeling like you're pretending. What was the burnout like?
Well, it was the accumulation of stress and anxiety that came from pretending, essentially, and it was when you're afraid of being found out, and then you feel that you're getting closer and closer and closer to that point, and then you've been just pretending and, you know, trying to work extra hard and work longer hours to compensate for that. And then at one point, I mean, my body just was like shut down essentially from the stress and the anxiety. And at the time I didn't necessarily know how to deal with stress, how to overcome it, or how to be okay with it. And so I let it maybe build up, and I saw it as a bad thing, and I combined it with these feelings of fraud and being found out. And so then the way I experienced this was one day I couldn't even look at my screen. I couldn't even, everything was blurry, and I went to the doctor, and she said, "Oh yeah, you're having a burnout, you need to stop working right now." And so that's kind of how I found it out. I didn't even necessarily know about the concept of burning out until I thought it was something that just happened to others who were weak.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's
interesting.
The shame as well. I mean, like, that's one thing that I experienced when I had it, was this shame. It's you know, it's one thing being found out, but then there's also the shame that you experience, and what will people think, and, you know, and I hid it for as long as I could remember as well. I didn't want people to find out. I was just gone on an extended holiday.
So there's a stigma around it as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a reason why we're pretending. It's because we feel that if people find out, we lose our sense of self, in a sense, because we often attach our self-worth to what we're doing. And so if suddenly we can't do what we're doing, then it's like our whole identity gets shattered.
Yeah, I think you've touched on a really important point just there about identity and how we attach ourselves to certain companies or organizations. And we feel like if we're in these big companies and we've got these big names behind our back, then people will see us as successful. So then what happens when that disappears? You know, a lot of people are going through redundancies at the moment, and they're losing their jobs, and then they're having to navigate the world of work from scratch. So what advice would you give to people who may be in those situations?
So I mean, I would connect to you know, what's really going on underneath. And a lot of the time what's really going on underneath is that there's a reason why we attached our sense of self-worth to the companies that we work for, to the big brands that we hide behind. And that's because deep down there's this sense that we're not enough just as ourselves, right? And so if you can kind of investigate a bit on this feeling, and I mean, it takes a lot of work, but I think the key is to focus on self-care, self-love, self-esteem, and start treating yourself like someone that you love. And you can do that by taking better care of your needs, so getting better at setting boundaries, saying no, because that's kind of like voting towards yourself, because by setting boundaries, by saying no, it's a vote of self-love towards yourself, because you're telling your body and your mind that you actually value yourself. And so it would be to focus on, how can I improve my self-esteem, how can I improve my self-worth? And the best way to do that is to start treating yourself as someone that you love. And or at least, people say treat yourself as you would your best friend, but I'd say even further, treat yourself as if you were the 5-year-old version of you, and you want to hug them and
give some love.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. And I feel like that was really powerful, because so many people don't realize how attached they are to something through identity until it disappears.
Yeah.
Or they burn out.
Yeah.
So what is it that you do now? Because you touched on it slightly. You're a coach, and you've moved away from the corporate world, and now you're like a full-time coach online.
Yes.
Just share a bit more about what you do now.
Yeah. So now I help people, well, specifically from the corporate world and like big tech companies, because that's kind of my background, to regain that self-confidence and kind of restore that relationship they have with themselves, so that they can, I mean, it's funny because I position myself as overcoming imposter syndrome, but actually what I really end up doing is helping people become comfortable with it, and not try to get rid of it, but actually embrace it and see it as one of your best friends. And the same with self-confidence. What ends up happening is we believe that confidence is this ultimate state that we're gonna reach, but actually what I believe is more important is courage and taking action and doing things scared. That's way more important than actually confidence itself. And so my clients will often come to me to work on self-confidence and imposter syndrome, and at the end of it, they maybe their self-confidence and imposter syndrome are still there, but their relationship to it has completely changed, and they're actually okay with it, and they feel more at ease and more at peace, and they've come to terms with the fact that it's okay and that there's nothing wrong with them. And so that's kind of the journey that I take my clients on.
Wow. So people come with one thing, oh my gosh, imposter syndrome, and you're like, well, let's slow down. Slow down. Let's look at your relationship to that, and let's shift the way that you make it mean about imposter syndrome. Wow. So for somebody who's experiencing imposter syndrome right now, and they don't want anyone to know, and they've been hiding it for years, and they feel like they're just about to, what advice would you give to them?
So
tips, because we don't really give advice, tips, suggestions.
No, I know. Well, one of my there's so many ways of looking at it. Yeah. So maybe one interesting idea is that there's the one difference between someone who experiences imposter syndrome and someone who doesn't experience imposter syndrome is just a thought, right? So it's just a thought. It's just one thought that makes you believe you're an imposter versus makes you not believe you're an imposter. And so I'm no Zen Buddhist monk yet, so I haven't been able to control my thoughts and make myself think differently. But what has really helped me is to kind of see, because we're not our thoughts, we're the ones observing our thoughts. And so if you can kind of label this imposter syndrome as a specific type of thought. So let's say you call it your imposter. It's your imposter, and so you label it so that it kind of becomes separate to you. So it's not you anymore. It's just this little this imposter Alex, you can call it, this little imposter Alex who's telling you these thoughts, and then I like to imagine that imposter Alex is actually a 5-year-old. And so, if a 5-year-old came to you, like maybe a 5-year-old in your family came to you and said, Carita, you're not good at this, like you're terrible, you're going to be found out, like you shouldn't be doing this, like you would just be like, oh, you're cute, like, you know, you probably you're probably a bit insecure, you give them some love and give them a hug. And so kind of that's my, like, it's a simple technique, but it works pretty well. It's just to imagine that the imposter voice in your head is that of a 5-year-old.
Right.
And it's just a version of you. It's just a part of you that needs a bit of love, that needs a bit of reassurance. And it's also there. It's got your best interest at heart. Like it's actually there to keep you safe.
Yeah.
But it doesn't realize that there's no actual danger. And so when you can kind of distance yourself from that thought by labeling it and imagining it as a little version of you, then it loses a lot of its power over you. So that would be like a simple tip on.
Love it. Detach yourself from your thoughts. Think of a 5-year-old and give them some love.
Yes, exactly.
I love it. That's awesome. That is an amazing tip. And I feel like, you know, imposter syndrome, it shows up no matter where you are in your career. And this is the Unwrap Your GIFT podcast.
Yeah.
So people who I talk about gifts a lot and having internal gifts, and I'm going to share a bit of information about what I describe a gift as.
Yeah.
So I describe a gift as a natural talent or ability, something that you do naturally to you. It comes easily, it comes freely. And when I talk about gifts, what would you say your gift is?
So I would say it's a gift that I've recently discovered. I didn't know it was that important of a gift, but it's to give my full presence and attention. So it's giving myself to the people that I spend time with, and giving them my full attention, and listening from a place of trying to understand, not trying to respond.
Yes. I love that, because that's important as a coach, to be able to really be with somebody and give them that attention with a clear listening, no judgment, just be with them. That's a very powerful to have. And from that gift, can you see how that may have showed up throughout your life before you identified what it was? Can you see how that has shown up throughout your life?
Well, I can see how it's something, but before I knew about it, it was actually hindering me in many areas, because I wasn't doing right, because I was trying to be something different. I wasn't embracing my gift. And I was trying to be someone who would, you know, contribute and talk and say something clever, say intelligent stuff, whereas my gift is actually listening, asking questions, curiosity. And so I guess I kind of grew up in this world where, you know, you think that intelligence means it means saying clever things, it means knowing the most about history, knowing the most about world politics and all that. And so I was always trying to be someone like that, but that was never me. Like my true gift was listening. My true gift was just being with people.
Wow. This is all about owning your gift. Owning your gift, being true to yourself. And, you know, with society, we've got certain ways that seem like they're the way that we should be, but we all have our own way of being. And owning your gift and accepting your gift as well as your gift, that is an important thing to do. So I always like to ask people, what would you say is one of your favorite quotes? What would you say is one of your favorite quotes?
So I mean, I have so many. I'm a quotes guy, but let's stay on the theme of imposter syndrome.
Yep.
So, and it's a quote by Ricky Gervais, who says, "The best advice I ever received was, no one else knows what they're doing either."
Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
That definitely does hit imposter syndrome, because it's like it's not just me, you know. And I'm sure this podcast will get a lot of people coming forward saying, "Oh my gosh, it was like talking directly to me. I'm not alone." Yeah.
because no one really knows what they're doing. Like if you think about like life and what we're here on doing on this planet, no one knows what they're doing, and there's this false preconception that there's a specific way to live your life, that you should be own a house and do this, have family, have kids at this stage of your life, and if you're not doing that, if you haven't progressed in your company, there's this idea that there's a right way of doing it. But there's no right way of doing it. And once you can kind of connect with that and realize that there's nothing wrong with you, we're all just doing our best, figuring it out as we go along, and there's no right or wrong way to live your life, then you can just get on with it and worry less about what's going on around.
Yes. Yeah, when you were speaking, I heard the affirmations, I am enough, and I trust myself.
Yeah, exactly. It's about trusting yourself. It's this. I had one of my clients recently. So we write when we start coaching together. With my clients, I ask them to write a letter to themselves from the future. So they start off and they have an idea of exactly where they want to end up, and then she was reflecting about this letter, and she was like, because in the letter she said, after these 4 months of working together, I hope to have more clarity about where I'm going and more clarity about my life. But now I've realized that actually clarity is not important. And actually what I got out of this coaching was that I am completely comfortable and I feel no shame in not knowing, in the unknown, and not knowing where I'm going.
Yes.
And so she came to me because she wanted to know things. She wanted to be able to predict and plan and know exactly what's happening. But after the coaching, what she actually got from it was this comfortableness with the unknown and being okay and trusting herself, and that whatever happens for a reason, and that whatever happens, she'll be okay because she knows she's resilient and she trusts in her ability to figure it out as she goes along.
Yeah, I trust myself. That's so powerful. Yeah. And that realization is like a big weight off your shoulders. Like I don't have to have it all together. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't all have to be right. I've got this.
Exactly.
Love that. So what would you say is a message that you would love to leave with the audience today? What message would you love to leave with the audience today?
I would say just, again, like no one knows what they're doing. Trust yourself. Figure it out as you go, and whatever happens, like you'll be okay.
Got it. Whatever happens, you will be okay. Trust yourself, and you got this. Yes. That is brilliant. That's brilliant, Alex. So let everybody know, how can they get hold of you? If they want to get hold of you, just let them know.
Yeah, so you can follow me on LinkedIn, Alex Østergaard, and I have a scorecard that you can fill out that gives you loads of tips on how to improve your confidence and overcome imposter syndrome. So feel free to use that, or just send me a DM on LinkedIn. That's where I spend most of my time, is on LinkedIn.
You're amazing at LinkedIn. I wanted to say, I follow you every time you post. I'm like, gosh, Alex posting. You're brilliant. I'm sure you've got lots of fans out there as well, which is great. So follow Alex on LinkedIn if you're not already. He's great. Posts some really good content. And yeah, get in touch. So thank you so much for joining us today. You have been a great guest. I feel a bit seen, I'll be honest with you. But I also feel relieved to know that I'm not the only one. And so thousands or millions of people out there, they can relate to this topic today. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Karita, and for your presence and amazing energy. I've really, really enjoyed talking to you today. And thanks for being with me on this journey, and for how much you have contributed to how I'm doing, and you've always been there for me. So I appreciate you.
Thank you. I really got that. You are amazing, Alex. This is great. So guys, remember, we are all born with a gift, and we all have special skills, talents, and gifts that we can use to be successful. And now's the time to unwrap your gifts. Subscribe to the podcast and see you soon. Bye.
Bye.